Okay, there we go. So just from I'm Greg Newman. I'm the Clovis Chamber CEO, President and CEO, and we're excited to announce this new member benefit program, which is a multi-employer plan, retirement plan. And we had been approached by principal in Hicks about this new and exciting plan with a partner with Transamerica as also as a partner. We decided as a board to pursue this plan as a member benefit. So we're excited about it. We're always looking for new, innovative and exciting ways to help our members to reduce their costs, help them in their business. And we feel that this is a good way to do it, especially with the new state of California requirements to have a retirement plan, employers to have a retirement plan for their employees. And I think that this last tier is coming into play with anybody with 5 or more employees are required to have a retirement plan in the state of California. That will trigger, I think, June 30th of this year. And those tiers with 500 more employees, 100 more employees, those have already happened. And then I guess the alternative is this Cal Savers plan from the state of California, which is a little cumbersome, not as user-friendly, less control, more paperwork, all those things that I hear that has. So I'm going to let you introduce yourselves and kind of take it away, and we'll pretend this is a TV show, kind of describe to our viewers what it is, why it works, and why it's a benefit to them.
Thank you, Greg. I'll go ahead and jump in. My name is Dan Roger. I'm a director for Transamerica Retirement, working solely on these types of multiple employer plans. So I'll be doing most of the presentation today. We've worked with a number of chambers, particularly in California, probably due to Cal Savers more than anything else, to be able to offer an attractive benefit out to their members. Very happy to be partnering with Clovis and the group there, and we see this as having great potential. The partners that we have from the advisory side over at the principal, Nicola and Rob, I see, and Davey, I think you're on the line if you want to pop in and just briefly say hi a little bit, and then I will go ahead and share my screen and start the presentation.
Morning, I'm Nicola Peacock. I'm one of the financial advisors on the MEP, and we are with Principal.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Fantastic. So I will go ahead and get started here. I know everybody's got a lot of things to do during the day, so we'll make this as concise as possible, but we're always around. And if you have questions today, as Greg said, feel free to ask them. If there's questions that come up later, he knows where to find us, and we're happy to answer any questions that any of the members might have going forward on the plan itself. When we look at these sort of plans, and particularly in the kind of the sphere of chambers of commerce, you see that chambers of commerce, I think, have been much more of a business partner in a lot of ways over this last couple of years with their members than maybe ever before, with things like PPP loans and openings and closings and restrictions. A lot of businesses have been relying on their chamber as a great source of information on what to do and how to do it properly. And those chambers, obviously their concerns are trying to make sure that in today's business environment, they're providing a substantive value, a benefit out to their members, something that can attract new members in and retain the current members that they have. And that's exactly what these plans will do going forward. The business owners that are out there today have a lot of different concerns, a lot of things on their plate. Healthcare costs are going up. Limited resources and time. A lot of them are working with fewer people, trying to do just as much or even more going ahead, particularly in the retirement plan area. The person that might have been running the retirement plan before might have been wearing 3 or 4 different hats. Now maybe they're wearing 10 different hats. And it takes a lot of time and effort out of the business itself to offer these sort of plans going forward. That's where we think this is a unique solution that might help a wide breadth of the membership out there at Clovis. I'm going to take a quick kind of overview, what we call multiple employer plans. In the financial world, financial speak is something that we do quite a bit. We've got a lot of acronyms. We call them MEPs, for example, multiple employer plans. But these sort of plans have actually been around for a long period of time. They've been around actually since the early 1900s in one form or another. They're typically 401k plans, but they can also have some plans might be 403b plans for nonprofits. And basically what a multiple employer plan does is it covers companies that typically have a common interest. And in this case with the chamber, the common interest is you're a member of the chamber. By being a member of the chamber, it allows you to be in a plan with other members going forward. That's the commonality that allows this plan to work. As a matter of fact, in July of 2019, Department of Labor issued a number of rulings, and in particular, they mentioned Chambers of Commerce has areas that they think should look at sponsoring plans for their memberships going forward. So here's how it works, basically. There's a sponsor of the plan, okay? In that case, it's the chamber is the primary plan sponsor. And then the members become adopting employers into the plan itself. And there's a number of benefits for that potential membership going into the plan. A cost savings, a fiduciary support. There's no individual audits, no individual tax filings. We'll get into all this in more detail here in a moment. They're trying to offload as much administration as possible, and the ability to have something that can bring in, retain, and attract new employees into their business. We see everyday articles about the workforce and how hard it is to get people to come in, become employees. These sort of plans can be a big attraction to get employers fully staffed going forward. I always talk about kind of the triad of benefits for these sort of plans. One is potential cost savings. It just makes sense that if I take my $200,000 retirement plan and some other company has $500,000 and some other company has $1 million, and we put them all together, we're probably going to get a better price by combining our assets than we could individually on our own. So that potential aggregation of dollars can definitely be a cost savings. In a lot of cases, we see a 20-25% savings over what you might have individually if you try to go out and do this on your own. But I think the other two aspects are really important too. Saving time. The way we've structured these plans is that we've got administrative support that's going to go and take care of the day-to-day functionality of the plan. Sending out notices when you're supposed to send the notices out, approving loans and distributions. All of that is going to be handled in a professionally outsourcing manner. So we're not asking the chamber to take that day-to-day administration. We're having our team that's combined with Transamerica, with the folks at Principal, the folks over at Hicks Pension. All of them will be able to be kind of in that background, making sure the day-to-day administration happens when it's supposed to happen in a timely manner. And that's part of our fiduciary support. When we do these plans with chambers, we make sure there's an administrative fiduciary, a company that basically is taking care of the administrative side of what needs to get done. They'll actually sign the tax filing. They'll be the ones approving loans and distributions and those sort of things. And really the overseer of the day-to-day functionality of it. They're going to sign on as the administrative. It's called a 316 fiduciary. We're also going to have an investment fiduciary. It's going to be monitoring the investment options on a quarterly basis, making sure that those investment options compare to their peers, making sure from a cost and return side that they're high quality investment options. So we're taking those two segments that tend to be that fiduciary liability that kind of soared over the head of the business owner in a lot of cases, and removing that and putting it into professional hands. The key component of these sort of plans going forward. From a member point of view, what's the advantages to you? There's a number of them. One is obviously that pricing flexibility, where we're able to get a better price for you at the end of the day by combining assets. But we've also, and we'll talk about this a little more in a minute, you have plan design flexibility. We're not pigeonholing you into one or two options of how you can design your plan. You're going to be able to customize your plan design to fit your business and your employees, okay? You're going to be able to have an easy to adopt plan that's going to allow for businesses to basically have the ability to put into a place a retirement plan if they don't have one already, or to transfer their retirement plan without the hassles that can happen when you're trying to do it on your own. There's one, what's called a 5500 filing. Think of it as a 1040 for the retirement plan. That 5500 filing, if you're running a current plan, say a 401k for your current business, you're probably signing the 5500 yourself, or somebody on your staff as the administrative fiduciary on the front page of it. Well, we don't need a 5500 filing for each adopting employer going in. There's going to be one total for the entire plan, and our administrative fiduciary is going to be signing off on that. It's also what's called a single audit requirement. If you're members out there and you've got over 100 employees and you sponsor a plan like this, you have to have an outside auditor come in every year and audit the plan. That can range anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a year. It doesn't matter if your plan has a $500,000 or $10 million in it. You have to have that outside audit requirement individually, each company paying that audit fee. But if you go into the Clovis MEP, there's only going to be one audit for the entire plan itself. And we're able to make that a very cost-effective scenario. So not only the smaller companies can benefit from all the things that we've talked about, but larger companies can come in and say, look, it'd be nice not to have to write that $5,000, $10,000, $8,000 check every year. If I'm not a member, maybe now's the time to join and be a member of the Clovis Chamber for that sort of benefit for my business. These sort of plans also improve employee retention. As I said, it's a very competitive workspace today to try to recruit and attract employees into your business. And we're able to do advanced design options. We've got Hicks Pension, who's a great third-party administration firm that can actually talk to each of the individual companies and make sure they're designing the plan that works best for their members. Should it be a profit share? What kind of match should there be for the 401k plan? What about entering into the plan? When should that happen? We can have all those discussions on a custom basis. The administrative thing is something that if you have a current plan, you kind of know what happens to it and the day-to-day involvement with it. If you don't have a plan, there's a lot of things that tend to happen on the administrative side that can take you away from your day-to-day work. But we're able to offload that. We're able to make sure that we can, for example, distribute enrollment kits and disclosures when they're supposed to be distributed. We can process the loans and approve loans and distributions from our side. We'll track who's eligible. We'll track the contribution limits, make sure that distributions go out in a timely manner, do the 5500 form, do the investment reviews, and make sure everything's up to date from a compliance and legislative side. That's that sort of administrative offload that allows you to do your job and make sure that we're running the plan on an efficient basis. There's a lot of players that are involved with this. Sometimes this slide says, well, there's a lot of people here. But what we're doing basically is making an umbrella of support for you to make sure that at the end of the day, that as a participating employer in that plan, you've got professionals surrounding you, making sure the plan's running well. Make sure we've got a quality third-party administrator, make sure that we've got fiduciaries from the investment and the administrative side, make sure our bonding's up to date, make sure we've got an auditor that can audit the entire plan, not just the individual employers, and make sure everything's running smoothly. And one of our big partnerships is with the folks over at Principal, Nicola, Rob, Davey, that group, to help each of these members take a look and see from the investment side, what they should be doing, talk to the employers, the business owners about the way that they can maximize their retirement needs. It's a great team all around that we're able to supply to make sure that this runs smoothly for everybody going forward. Couldn't get away without a Transamerica commercial, so I will just take a minute. Transamerica has been doing these sort of plans for over 20 years. We currently have, slide's a little old, we have over 300 different plan sponsors, over 15,000 different adopting employers. We are kind of the 800-pound gorilla on the street on this. About 1 in every 4 association chamber type of plans is with Transamerica. This is a core part of our business. We built a separate business entity to do nothing but handle these multiple employer plans. And that's why we see a lot of these chambers of commerce coming to us. I was talking to Greg, we were at the Western Association of Chamber Executives Conference last week. here in Glendale, and had a number of our current clients come up to us from the chamber side, and a number of potential clients come up. They understand that we know how to do this business, and we'll make sure it runs smoothly for everybody. One thing that we're just trying to do at the end of the day is make sure that we take that burden of the retirement plan and take it off your plate. You know, rather than having a plan where you've got to do a lot from an administrative and fiduciary responsibility side, outsource that and a professional manager, the people that are doing it going forward for you. And particularly with Cal Savers and that sort of scenario right now, do you really want to be dealing with a state mandated type scenario? Wouldn't it be better if we could, at the end of the day, make it easy for you? Make sure that from our system, we don't have just one option from a state mandated side of things. Our unique record keeping system allows us to make you as an employer going into this plan have the look, smell, and feel of having your own individual plan. We'll have web access where you can access all your information on the plan itself, actually get an annual plan review for just your part of the entire multiple employer plan. You'll be able to access the data of all your company information. We'll have great reporting and access from a payroll side. We've got connections with over 80 different payroll companies. So more likely than not, we can find a way to ease that burden of sending in your contribution and have it happen automatically from our side. So if you're using a current payroll provider, particularly ones that are national, we've got connections with all of them out there. And most importantly, I think at the end of the day, we're going to have the ability to have flexible plan provisions. We'll be able to talk to you and say, well, what do you want for eligibility? When do you want people to enter into the plan? What type of contributions do you want to make? We'll be able to have your formulas, your vesting schedules to make it customized for you at the end of the day. So we're not trying to put you into a cookie cutter mold. We'll make sure that we're able to have a plan that specific benefits your company itself. By adding in our past services, we're able to take care of those enrollments, those loans, those distributions, those communications, so we can make it look, smell, and feel like a custom plan for you, but take that burden off from the administrative side of things. So at the end of the day, what we want to do is basically talk to those of you, particularly those right now that currently have an existing plan. And we'd like to ask you to let us do a comparison of your current plan against what we're offering here with the Clovis Chamber. Not just a pricing comparison, we'll do that, but also let's take a look at the administrative side of things. What are you doing now that we can take off your plate? Let's take a look at the fiduciary liability side. What are your liabilities now, and how can we reduce those going forward? So if you have any interest in having us do a comparison for you, we'd love to be able to contact you and walk through that to make sure that we can give you a side-by-side comparison of how this plan with the Chamber of Commerce at Clovis might be the best thing for everybody at the end of the day. We really encourage you to let us know anything that we can do to help you become comfortable with the plan itself. We think it's a terrific option out there. We've got a number of chambers that are using this for their members and have had great reception. And we look forward to working with the folks at Clovis to get this up and running as soon as possible. So I will turn it back to Greg at this point.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Let me add, there's a couple questions that attendees asked in the chat. So let me get to those. And one is if the employer does not want to offer a loan option to their employees, is that something they can do?
So the plan itself has a couple of determinants that are kind of plan wide for everybody. One of those is loans, and typically they offer a maximum of 1 or 2 loans, and that is for all members. So if you didn't want to offer loans, it probably wouldn't be the right fit for you, okay? Because we typically, most plans we see out there, 95% offer at least 1 or 2 loans, and that'd be kind of the commonality we'd have within the chamber itself.
Okay. Another question, this person, they currently have a 1-year waiting period. Would that change, or can each employer decide what the waiting period is?
Each employer can decide. So they can continue to keep their 1-year waiting period, not a problem. They can determine their vesting schedule. They might have a 3, 5, 6 year vesting schedule. We can make all of that work.
Okay, great. Okay, let's why don't you release the screen there real quick, Dan, and
Sure.
ask some questions from the principal folks, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so from the principal and from my understanding, so I know where Transamerica sits, I know where principal is kind of the boots on the ground folks that would have some of the day-to-day correspondence with the folks in the plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
So from whoever wants to speak on behalf of principal, so why don't you walk through a scenario where we have a new employer wants to be part of a plan? What would you principal do as far as, I know you guys are going to be the ones alleviating some of that paperwork and burden on the employer. Can you talk about how that happens? How you interact with their employees? How you what kind of meetings you have with their employees? How you get them to understand what the 401k plan is and to get them to participate?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Greg. So basically what we do is walk through, first off, we walk through with the employer and Hicks to make sure that the plan is designed exactly as the employer wants it designed. From there, upon implementation, we go through the steps with the employees, talking to them a little bit about finance, talking to them about their investment options, and giving them some education as far as what direction they may want to go. From there, we help them sign up for the plan, and then depending on the employer, some employers like to have meetings more than once a year as far as educational meetings. We will set up at least one meeting a year per employer to go over the plan with the employees, both that are on the plan and are not on the plan. So have the opportunity for those that are not on the plan to sit down again and hear a little bit about it and maybe sign up at that point if they hadn't already. But also then maybe go into other educational classes as well. So those classes being maybe on debt management, maybe on budgeting. So there's other education classes in addition that we can help the employers with and work with their employees during office hours, for lack of a better term. And so that's that ongoing process to make sure that the employees are aware of the investments that are in there, as well as how the investments react to what they're choosing, and making sure that they're also invested in such a way that they're comfortable with, that they understand how they're invested, and making sure that they're able to come to the table and have a successful retirement someday.
Okay, so if an employer joins the plan, there would be an in-person educational meeting with all of the employees. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. Let's answer your questions. Let's make it comfortable for you. On this is how it's different than what you might have had before. But if an employer hires, they're always hiring and new employees all the time. Do you come out once they hire a new employee at their request, or how do you do the kind of the new hire education and information?
Great question. So basically what we do from there is the employer contacts us when the 30 days prior to the employee being eligible. Usually in a lot of cases, to help simplify things, is we would coordinate the date in which an employee is eligible, maybe with some of their other benefits. So if the employer offers group medical insurance, maybe we set this thing up in such a way that the employee is eligible for all their benefits at the same time, or majority of their benefits at the same time. That way you're taking less time away from that employee for being on the floor, so to speak. So they will get that one-on-one attention up front. Usually it's about 20-30 minute conversation. That can be done in person, or it can also be done in a Teams setting, so a virtual setting. Either way, as far as what the employer wants to do on that.
Okay, and just curious, I know some, there's different types of employers out there, different types of businesses. Let's give example, if somebody has two different shifts, they have one shift that comes on at 6 a.m., they get off at 2, they have another shift that comes on at 3, or etc. Would you guys be flexible in being able to have those meetings when those employees are at work during a specific shift?
Sure, absolutely, we would. And sometimes employers will want to do that during the lunchtime. We found that it's more effective doing it during the work time, only for the fact that that kind of shows the employee more value. But absolutely, we could arrange for different shifts, so to speak. Right out front, Greg, I would love to have the 6 a.m. shift. That's my time of day.
Let's talk about some of the paperwork, the day-to-day stuff that somebody may be doing now, and that we're saying, hey, you don't have to do as much from your office. Can you kind of explain how some of that burden's taken away from a business?
Well, in a lot of cases, what we found in the past is that once somebody has a 401k maybe in place, for example, and it's through different advisors or something, or through their payroll company, the plan gets put in place, and then that's really all they get. And where we come in is we're going to make sure that the employee paperwork is taken care of. And from there, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, once the employee is enrolled, and Dan, that can be done electronically or on paper, correct?
Yes, and we, as long as the entry into the plan is at least 2 months after hire, we'll be tracking that. We'll send all the pertinent materials out to the eligible employee, and they would be able to either do a paper or an online enrollment from that point.
Perfect. And so, Greg, that's where we would step in as well to make sure that the employee got the education. We would make sure that the paperwork got turned back in. Hopefully, they're doing it electronically, because that's going to be most effective for them. And then also giving them a little bit of education as far as the website goes. So, showing them that they can change their investments when they want to, and items such as that. So that way, helping reduce that paperwork. So basically, it's going to be a phone call from the employer. Hey, we've got a new employee here. Can you come take care of this? Absolutely.
Greg, I think it's a bit important to note too, we're taking the employer out of that loop on the loans approval, distribution approval, quadro approvals, all of that, as well as the mandatory notices that need to go out to employees on an annual basis. We'll be sending those out in the correct, timely manner for all the adopting employers. The employer will not have the responsibility for doing that anymore.
Dan, do you send those to via email? Do you mail something to their house, or how do you get that information out to them?
If we have the email, we'll send it via email. In a lot of cases, we don't have the email, so we'll send a paper copy.
Okay.
I just realized I didn't have my camera on. I apologize.
Yeah, I thought you were being shy.
You know me better than that.
Okay, so I'm going to keep asking some questions. So we have an employer, they have an existing plan. They said, okay, we're going to give this a shot, because it's a big deal, right? So if somebody's been, with the existing plan and administrator and all that, to make a change, it needs to make sense. Why am I going to go through this headache and heartache and brain damage to do it? So it needs to make sense for them. And, I think, the cost savings, the reduction of paperwork, if there is, and the fiduciary responsibility, the auditing, I mean, those are all great points. But on a day-to-day level, where does the reduction happen? I mean, I know that the employer still needs to submit the information on, pay, all those things. So do they do that on a per pay period basis? Do they upload something to you guys, or how does that work?
Yeah, typically it's on a per pay period basis. I mean, say we've got agreements, Greg, with about 80 different payroll companies that can do either what's called a 180 or a 360 feed of information, but it essentially allows for an automatic flow of that information. And typically that information includes census information, new hire information. That's how we can track for enrollments, things of that type. So rather than have to take your information, put it into an Excel format, that needs to happen specifically for the provider you're at, which is what happens in a lot of cases. We can work automatically with the payroll company and say, oh, you've got, Paycom. Okay, Paycom knows how to format things into our format that we need. You don't have to do anything. So we can take them out of the process of that manual file upload and have it happen automatically from our side. In most cases, like I said, we've got agreements with 80 different companies. There's always the one-offs out there, but for the most part, we can make it very, very easy and streamlined from that side.
Okay. Another question from the group. What do you do if employee enrollment drops?
And I think I'll kind of bring it over to Rob, but I think in a lot of cases, enrollment drops because of a lack of contact and a lack of sitting down with them and working with them. And sometimes a lack of actually just talking in plain English about how good this benefit is. Sometimes I think, we tend to talk in legal and financial ease sometimes, and you need somebody like Rob and his group that can sit down and say, look, your company's offering you this. This is a great benefit. Here's why it would work out really well for you. You need that kind of local hands-on type scenario, but I'll turn it over to Rob.
Yeah, thank you. So through our business model, what we've found is that in the past with maybe 401ks we took over or something like that, through the model of having the annual education meetings and maybe some other education meetings throughout the year as well, participation usually 9 out of 10 times increases dramatically from where it had been. Also, our goal is that we maintain a minimum of 75% participation, and through the plans that we have so far and along those lines, we're achieving much higher returns than that.
Okay. Another question from the audience. Does this have an automatic enrollment option where if an employee does not return enrollment paperwork, they are automatically enrolled, let's say for an example, at 3% or whatever?
Yes. Yes, it does. That is one option that can be chosen. Yes.
Or not chosen.
And not chosen.
Not
yes.
chosen.
So they get the choice in that. So that's part of that plan design, Greg. So that way the employer is really customizing this plan to exactly what they want. This is not something that says, no, you have to do it this way. Each plan within the MEP or the multi-employer plan can and will be different.
Okay, so let's say you have an employer and they really want, they want their employees to invest, right? They want them to have retirement. They want them to be fiscally responsible, all that stuff. So the employer can decide, hey, if you didn't give me you don't return the paperwork, you're going to be enrolled automatically. And then,
Correct.
And then at that point, they have to opt out.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that tends to be also the way, if you look at legislature that's going through Congress, automatic enrollment is very, very positive from their point of view. That's what they'd like to see happening in the future. So I think more and more from a legislative side, automatic enrollment is going to become the norm rather than the exception, but we can handle it both ways.
Okay, so the employer can mandate, can an employer mandate employee enrollment? Saying
They can set it up. Mandate's a bad word. They can set it up. And so what they can also set up in addition to that is not only set up the automatic enrollment or not, they can also set up automatic escalation so that each year the employee contribution goes up by 1%.
Okay.
To a certain cap.
Okay. So there's really, legally, can an employer mandate it? Probably not.
Well,
There has to be an opt-out.
Yeah.
So it's the employee's money. They have the option. They can get automatically enrolled, but then they can say, hey, I want to opt out. I want my money to go spend it elsewhere. Okay.
Yeah. And the nice part about having a 401k plan versus such as the CalSavers plan, in this case, Greg, is the fact that if the employee does decide to opt out, you don't have to worry about the automatic opt-in coming up in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an automatic opt-in in CalSavers that comes back to bite you in the rear end again, so to speak.
Okay.
So that doesn't happen. So until the employee wants to opt into the plan, they're all good to go.
Okay. Fiduciary responsibility. So how is that a benefit to an employer at this point, as far as, legally, is some of that liability taken away from them as far as their as being the plan administrator, and it gets shifted to whom?
So it gets shifted to, from an administrative side, it's shifted to the folks at Hicks, who's the TPA and the 316 plan administrative fiduciary. Okay, so they're taking on that burden. And that's primarily, if you look at the Department of Labor, if they come in and fine a business about their retirement plan, 93% of fines are administrative functionality issues. They didn't do something when they were supposed to do something, or they did something that wasn't in the plan document itself. Okay, that's where people get fined from the Department of Labor. You didn't send the notices out when you should have. You didn't do this when you should have, type of thing. Hicks Pension is taking on that responsibility from the administrative side. So realistically, anybody that's signing or having a member of their company sign their 5500 form right now for a plan, they're saying they're the administrative fiduciary. We're taking that away.
Who does, on a day-to-day basis, employers, who are they going to be in contact with? So if they need to pick up the phone and call somebody because there's a problem with the plan, you know, that, you know, they're going to have, you know, Dan's phone number, Nicola's phone number, you know, Jessica at Hicks. So who's going to be the contact company for these employers if there's a problem or a question?
So the contact will be principal. And so each employer will have their own advisor, highlighted, so to speak, but multiple advisors would be able to help the employer out and then be able to go from there. So for example, if Nicola's on vacation, then we've got a backup to make sure that there's somebody else that they can talk to that's going to be here in town.
Okay, so if they have an issue, let's say that becomes a Transamerica issue, they're still calling Nicola. She's going to solve the employer's problem. She's going to call Transamerica. She's going to figure it out for them.
She knows where to find us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Let's some people using the chat, some people are not. Let's open it up to anybody else in attendance. Wait, I have another question that came through chat. Just a second, which is awesome. This question, we don't have a retirement plan currently and have less than 25 employees. Do we anticipate the plan being available for their company prior to June 30th?
We're sure trying. And you know what, we're trying to get that up and running as fast as possible. If not, what we can do is we can continue the process to try to get this going with Transamerica. One of the options we could then do to make sure that they have a plan in place is put a Transamerica plan in place. And Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, once the Clovis plan goes active, there's a one-page form for the employer to sign that would basically roll them into the plan with Transamerica, being Transamerica.
Yeah, it's an easy process from there. I think hopefully we'll have everything up and running easily by the June 30th deadline. I think technically on Cal Savers, and I may be wrong, but I don't think I am, they have 90 days from the June 30th deadline to have something in place before any sort of buying happens. So at that point, we're talking September 30th, and I would hope there'd be no reason why we wouldn't be up and running prior to that time.
Okay, another question, if an employee leaves, can they keep their money in the 401k plan, or do they roll it over, or are they required to roll it over to an IRA plan?
So it depends on the plan itself. So the plan can decide. Typically what happens is this, Greg, most plans have a provision. If you have under $5,000, you either have to take the money to your own IRA or they'll move it to an IRA for you. If you have over $5,000, you can leave it in the plan for as long as you want to.
Okay.
Now, 5,000 is a DOL line in the sand. It's not ours or anybody else's, but that's typically what happens.
Can the employer decide? So let's say somebody was an employee, they have over $5,000. The employee, you know, it was a messy breakup, and the employer doesn't really want them in the plan. Can they boot them out?
That's where he calls the person at principal and says, "Hey, why don't you go talk to Joe over here and give him some options to take it out." He can't force them out, but that's the advantage of boots on the ground locally that can go and talk to them and say, "Here's some other things you can do to make this better for you."
Okay, and principal is notified of an employee leaving by the employer, sends a notice, hey, this employer is no longer with the company effective this date, and then you guys take it from there. The employee and the employer doesn't have to mess with them anymore. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. And two, Greg, also, in some cases, the employer might want to leave that money in the plan because the more assets in the plan for that particular employer, the lower the investment costs get over time.
Okay.
So there's different tiers for them to hit.
Let's talk about employees real quick. And you know, if they have a question about the plan, how they're investing, whatever, and the employer, they don't want to answer those questions. I mean, that they got other stuff to do. So what's the communication pipeline from the employee to the plan?
So that is basically getting back to the main advisor that's on that plan, and the employer can say, hey, you've got some great questions. Here's the phone number to your advisor, to our advisor.
Okay.
Give them a call. Here's their email address. Shoot them an email. Whatever the case is there, because the last thing the employer wants to do is to be answering investment questions, because they're on the hook for those answers that they give.
Right. Okay.
It also have the ability for not only internet access to their plan through Transamerica, but also to be able to call Transamerica representatives if there's something specific on the plan that they wanted to talk about, or web access, things of that nature. Also, from our side, we have the ability to have a Spanish website for Spanish-speaking employees. They just have to click a tab for Espanol, and it takes what we can translate into Spanish and do that, and also would have a Spanish language number that they could talk to.
Okay, because some employees aren't going to be as sophisticated with this plan. They're going to say, you know, why should I do it? So that, first hurdle is you have to convince them to participate, right? They take their hard-earned money and put it somewhere where they can't see it and use it for the next 25 years. And then it's, keeping them excited about it and educating them along the way. And, and if they get frustrated, they're just going to hit the opt-out button and give me my, $3,000, and then I'll just go spend it. Right. So that seems to be one of the issues that most employers have, is keeping their employees excited about saving for retirement.
And too, Greg, that's part of our responsibility, is to help these employees, for lack of a better term, help them shake hands with their future selves. Is this what they want to have to look forward to when they do retire someday? So being able to cross that bridge. Okay.
Let's open it up to anybody else in the audience. Do you have a question for either Dan at Transamerica or anybody from the principal family? No? Okay. Rob, why don't you give me your, what do they call that 3-minute elevator speech on why an existing employer should join our plan?
Why should an existing employer join our plan? Man, I think Dan already hit on a bunch of points there. You know what? There's various reasons. So number one is going to be the cost savings. Number two is the service that you're going to be receiving, the local service you're going to be receiving, especially if you currently have a plan with a payroll provider. Number three is the hands-on approach that we do, the education meetings, making sure that we make you as bulletproof as possible to the Department of Labor, because no one's bulletproof, so as possible. There's my disclaimer. But those are some of the reasons that we'd want to take a look at that. Other reasons we'd want to take a look at that is what their cost savings may be. And being able that, as they are a member to the Chamber of Commerce, having that additional benefit. So in looking at the pricing schedule, and this is something we would talk to each employer on a one-on-one basis. If you are an employer over 100 employees, for example, I think Dan hit on this, was as far as your annual audits that you have to do. There's a reduction in cost to the annual audit. So you have that going for you. You have other additional costs and rule of scale. So you get two options here to have your costs go down. One is as your plan grows. One is as the Clovis Chamber plan grows. So there's two opportunities there to help reduce costs. Also, the website capabilities that's at Transamerica are great to be able to have the employees directed to, both English and Spanish, all the materials printed in Spanish for our annual employee meetings. Those are just a few of the different things that we work on with folks, and making sure that your files are up to date as far as 401k for those other meetings that we're having with you folks.
Okay, fantastic. How do they find you?
How they find us? Great question. So that's real easy. So our phone number, they can call directly here, 559-650-2653. Or they can also just shoot me an email, or actually shoot our assistant an email. Her name is Michelle Ramirez, and her email address is RAM as in Mary, IREZ Michelle, MICHELLE @principal.com, and principal spelled with an AL,
Okay.
and
as
she'll
al-
get everything set up.
Yeah, and as always, you could always reach out to myself at the Clovis Chamber, and we'll get you that information. Greg at clovischamber.com. I have a lot easier email than Rob's group. But we think it's exciting. That's why the Clovis Chamber is doing this. We want this to be a good member benefit. We want to help our businesses in any way we can. And we think that this is a great way to do it. So Dan, Nicola, Davey, everybody else from the principal group, we appreciate your time, and thank you very much. And there again, if you have a question regarding the plan, if you'd like to make an appointment, if you want them to look at your existing plan compare it to this plan, they would be happy to do so. That's a free evaluation and analysis. They're going to be nice folks that do it for you, and hopefully it makes sense for your business. So
Greg, and that's Greg. Let me finish on one point that you just made right there. Is that if you haven't had your plan, your current 401k plan evaluated in the last 3 to 5 years, you really want to be making sure that that's happening as well.
Okay.
So that's a great segue to that.
Well, one last question here I'm going to ask you. So somebody makes the big decision to move, to move all their stuff. How much paperwork, what does that employer need to supply you for this change? I mean, is it going to be weeks worth of work, to get you the information, or what is kind of the process of making that change?
Yeah, we would ask for their current plan documents. We'd have the folks at Hicks, the third-party administrator, review that, talk to them about any changes they might want to make. The perfect opportunity to look at the plan and see if it's still the right plan design for you. And then Hicks is going to fill out a form for us at Transamerica based on that information. We have a transition manager that does nothing but transition these plans from one provider to another. That's what they do every day. And so it would be assigned to a transition manager at Transamerica. They would then handle everything from the communication that goes to the current company to making sure that everything's T's are crossed, I's are dotted. And they take care of that transition then of moving the assets and all the records over from the current provider into the Transamerica side to keep everybody up to date on what's happening. Because of the rules in place, it takes about 8 weeks for all that to happen, because there's a period of time where you have to give notices before certain dates and that sort of thing. But we would have individuals that would be assigned to the plan that would work step by step on making sure all that goes smoothly.
Well, you mentioned
we did about 2,500 new adopters last year from that group alone. So
okay, so you talked about Transamerica. Does the employer have that single point of contact still?
Yeah.
And that person is the facilitator for the transition?
Exactly.
Okay, so is it Transamerica or Principal or Hicks that employer is talking to?
It's going to be basically, there'll be somebody at Hicks, somebody at Transamerica, somebody at Principal also, but the Transamerica person is basically the quarterback of that, and making sure that everything flows through and gets done.
Yeah, there's going to be conference calls involved there, Greg, in which you're going to have multiple people on the line as that backup for that employer.
Okay, and that's just on the transition of it. And then on the ongoing side, it's just going to be somebody from Principal.
Right.
As the key point of contact.
Yeah.
As a key point, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, let me check the chat real quick to make sure that we don't have any further questions. We do not. So thank you again. I appreciate you spending time with us this morning and educating us on this exciting new plan. So thank you all.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye, thank you.